We've been dealing with this for 2 years. But what if I told you that the only way to find out what's wrong is if we let it starve? The thing is, if you get a plant for free, you'd probably wonder what's wrong with it. Yet, seeing as this plant looks completely fine and seems to have eaten a couple of flies, I decided to put it outside to catch some food. However, this was when I noticed some of its issues. You see, this fly found this trap thanks to the red colors in its mouth. And of course, the taste buds on its feet immediately tells the fly that there's some tasty nectar over here. However, bugs never know that they will always get addicted to that nectar. In fact, you can even see the exact moment the nectar hits this guy. After getting a taste, he walks off and just a couple seconds later turns around after that nectar gets to him. And even though he almost changes his mind again, he eventually comes back for more. And this is when the fly trap almost always has its next meal hooked. As the fly goes into the plant's trap, it makes its way towards the trigger hairs. And all the plant needs is for those hairs to be touched. But nothing happens. In fact, no matter where the fly goes, the plant just won't close its traps. Now, although this is extremely strange, we can only figure out what's wrong with it if we let it keep on missing its catches. And if you didn't know, every time it misses a catch, it wastes some energy. So it is literally starving itself. However, we might just get some clues the very next day. As this fly finds this trap, it's very clear that there's nothing wrong with the colors or with the nectar of the plant because they both work perfectly at attracting food. But as the fly touches the trigger hairs, we get even more questions than before. It hesitates. And then it tries to catch the fly. The only other time I can ever remember seeing a plant hesitate is when we had a new fly trap that seemed to be learning how to catch food. Now, of course, they are plants. They can't learn things, but I didn't change anything between yesterday and today. And seeing as I'm just more confused now than before, I left the plants alone for a couple more weeks before trying again. But this time, things seem a little different. As this fly lands on one of these new traps, it doesn't rush over to the nectar like all the ones before. This might be because the nectar isn't as strong or the colors aren't as bright, but eventually, it does make its way over to have a little taste. The only question now is whether or not the plant will close, and if it does, will it hesitate? Well, it didn't hesitate, but that was one of the slowest attempts I have ever seen from a fly trap before. I mean, the fly got away before it was even close to getting caught, but it was different this time. Now, I'm starting to see a pattern here, but before I confirm exactly what I'm thinking, over the next couple days, I made sure to give it as much sun as possible before taking it outside again. And this is where we can actually start to see some progress here. As always, the fly makes his way to the trap, and it doesn't take long for his little tongue to get a taste of that nectar. And soon enough, he starts hitting those trigger hairs. Okay, yes, the plant missed, but that little beetle is still there and has no idea what's going on. Don't worry, he's too small to get eaten, but I hope you guys also noticed how much quicker this plant just moved to try and get that fly. It's probably the quickest it has moved since we got it. But it's still not able to catch anything. And it stays like this for a couple more months, just constantly missing catches. Now, aside from giving the plant the best care possible and it visibly getting quicker and healthier, the big question is, why did it have old food in its traps if it never catches anything? Well, I think that comes down to the flies themselves. It's not often that I film our plants from above, but on this day, we had so many open traps that I wanted to see what would happen across all of them. And luckily I did. Pay attention to these two. Imagine for a moment that they can communicate about anything. I mean, they'd probably talk about food, right? What else would a fly talk about? And seeing as they are surrounded by tasty nectar, probably the fly traps all around them. But when they rub their hands like this, I always get suspicious of them. And for good reason too. It honestly seems like they just planned to do that. I know they're just flies, but that's insane. However, this does prove something pretty important to us, and it might be something you guys have noticed too. Green flies are quicker than the fly traps. In fact, every single miss we've seen in this video was because of a green fly. And seeing as I was filming everything from above, we actually see what happens if some other flies in our garden meets the fly trap. Firstly, we have a cautious blue fly, one of the biggest flies in our garden, and after he plans his next move with his famous hand rub, he makes his way over to the same spot that hundreds of green flies have already escaped. And just like we saw at the start of this video, he gets a taste, walks away, and once that nectar hits him, he turns around to get some more. And although he is quite cautious and tries to stay above the trap, he eventually forgets all about this and steps inside, right where the trigger hairs are waiting for him. Now, this trap didn't close any quicker than what we have been seeing, and it isn't only the blue flies that are on the menu. Just look at how simple this catch from a black fly was. It didn't even need to taste that nectar. Now, I'm not going to pretend as if I know why the plants can't catch the most common flies around. It just seems like they're too fast for it or something. But what I can say is that I made sure to get this plant much healthier over the past 2 years. And during all of this time, we finally discovered the secret as to why it kept missing. Please consider subscribing, and you'd probably enjoy seeing how these plants can actually work together. I'll see you there.